Hi there, I'm Coach Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about your ex's relief phase and why it ends.
Many of you are very curious about this relief stage because you see your ex thriving, happy, posting smiling pictures all over social media, and you are wondering what the heck is going on because I am feeling depressed and grieving.
Yeah, it's awful because you're devastated and you can't even fathom why they would leave or how they could do this to you to begin with, because you're like, I thought what we had was so important and so meaningful, and they look the exact opposite. And it feels very personal when that's happening. So we're going to talk about this because it's not as personal as you think.
Right. So we want to start by talking a little bit about what separation elation is. And that is right after the breakup, they've made this decision. They've finally gone through with it, which is something that they had probably been thinking about for a while and causing them stress and being in that place of indecision. So there's naturally going to be some relief from being able to go through with something.
Yeah.
And so this is that initial stage of them feeling independent, them doing what they want, having a lot more time to their hands because now they're not committing all their time into the relationship or stress worrying about their breakup decision. So now is just a period of time of, okay, I've done it. I'm still alive. I can make my own decisions now, completely free of the relationship. And it feels good. It feels nice. And this is difficult for you to swallow if you've been the one that's been broken up with because you are hurt. You know, you didn't want this decision to happen. But remember, in their mind, most of the time, they've thought about it a little bit beforehand and they've been somewhat prepared, at least for this initial stage.
Yeah. So they've been fantasizing to some extent, like, you've been neglecting them, you guys have been arguing, they're frustrated with you or the way the relationship is going, or maybe they are really avoidant and it was just too much pressure and too many obligations and it just felt like too much. So they've had to get away. They want that freedom. And the fantasy of the freedom when it first happens, it's like, the air feels fresher. They feel at ease. Now, there are moments. It's not like it's going to be like completely free, carefree, and amazing. There are going to be times where they are really missing you and hurting. But that relief stage that you're talking about really is the overwhelming feeling they're having.
Oh yeah, and sometimes with that feeling of more independence can also come this you can't tell me what to do attitude, right? They finally went through with this decision, which was probably hard for them to do, and they're going to stick to their guns. So they can have this kind of energy of I won't be bossed around. I'm going to do what I want. This is about me. It can be a very selfish period of time because they're, going back into their identity as an individual away from their identity from the relationship.
Yep.
So this explains a little bit about what's happening during that period. Now, this is a stage that many people pass through when they're going through a breakup. So this often isn't a state that lasts forever. Right? This initial feeling of relief is not going to feel new and exciting 6 months down the line, a year down the line, and so on and so forth.
Sure. And it's also going to depend on how long the relationship was. And like, say, if you were together for 10 years, there's probably going to be more of a relief stage than there is if you dated for 4 months.
Exactly. Yeah. Then comes more of the reality. Once this relief stage starts to fade off, meaning now they're starting to realize, okay, there were things that my partner brought into my life that I'm not getting anymore. Sure, I could have my own habits and routines that I'm creating that are new and it's fun and exciting, but now comes a bit of that missing what was and missing the good parts of the relationship.
The fantasy is no longer there.
Right. And a lot of times there's an intensity around the breakup. They could be feeling really angry. They could be feeling very self-protective, maybe in survival mode. And so once they've had some time from that intensity can kind of die down. And so they're feeling a little less like they have to be so protective of themselves if you're in no contact and if you give them that space.
That's right. If you're reaching out, then they don't have that space to miss you. But if you've stopped and you've gone no contact like we teach, it allows them to process and really start to feel that loss.
Right. And we talk about grief quite a bit on the channel and grief as it pertains to breakups. Nobody can escape grief. they will also experience grief on their own timeline. And this is important to remember.
Margaret used to say that there's nothing more difficult than grief, and people don't like to do it. So they party, they drink, they get into fights, they do all these other things than deal with the pain and the loss. So that's going to be part of what you're seeing your ex do and why they look so out of character, and they've cut their hair and they've dyed it and they've gotten a tattoo and they're doing all these things that you've never seen them do. Well, part of that is like exerting their independence, finding their own identity, but also it's like they don't like feeling sad. They don't feel like missing you. They don't like feeling like they've made a mistake and that walking away from this relationship was a mistake, right? So they are doing all these things to escape the grief and try and live this magical fairy tale life that simply isn't going to last. It catches up with them in time.
Yeah. And one thing on your end to remember is that you don't want to chase during this relief period, because while they are avoiding their grief and in this independence and in this you can't tell me what to do kind of attitude and mindset, they're not going to be receptive to your attempts to repair then, because they haven't even experienced their independence like they want to after the breakup. They haven't even experienced what they want out of the breakup. So they're not going to be receptive to you saying, hey, let's talk it out, or what if we can make it work, or I've come up with this, 12-step program to get us back together, or this, couples therapy thing that can help. They're not going to be so receptive to that in that period where they had just made this decision.
Yeah, you're likely going to irritate them and annoy them. And it's like their interest is kind of like at an all-time low and yours is like an all-time high.
Yeah.
And you're just relentlessly reaching out or, telling them how much you care about them in the 6-page handwritten letter. Oh, I had somebody do a 6-page handwritten letter to an avoidant just a couple of days ago. Oh. And she didn't even read the letter. Oh. She even said in the message back, this is too long for me to read. And he's like, well, she probably read it on her own time. I'm like, no, she was a real severe dismissive avoidant. Like the way that she handled things. I was like, she probably read a page of that and was like, he's saying the same thing over and over again. Something like that.
People can become very resistant and almost rebellious to your attempts to fix.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if she actually didn't read it, because I could see her being like, nope, this is my life. I've made this decision. I need to feel independent and free. And so just remember that when they're in this relief period, you might get the most pushback. This is why we encourage no contact during this time. Yes, it's to, have them go through this period and get to that point of self-reflection, but it's also in order for you to protect yourself. If you keep reaching out during this time and keep experiencing this rejection over and over and over again, this is going to break you down even more during a breakup. We don't want to keep you vulnerable in that sense during a breakup.
Yeah. Now, the one I was just talking about, the dismissive avoidant, I think eventually she'll pick up that letter and read a little bit more and then come back to it a couple months later and read a little bit more. But I don't, it would just be way too overwhelming.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I'm not recommending that he did that. He had done that before the coaching. And I don't recommend doing those things because they typically don't work. But I think she kind of will look here and there and probably wouldn't even read the whole thing before she reached out. That would be my guess, before she does some kind of indirect direct. But anyway, the point is that when the avoidant is feeling free, especially an avoidant, and your ex is going out doing all these things and life seems so great and they're going there out with their friends they haven't seen in a long time and they're doing all these things and they could just go home at night and not have to worry about anybody else's feelings, eventually the novelty of it kind of goes away and you start to get kind of lonely and you're not as excited to go out as much and you realize that your friends are a pain in the butt and half the time they cancel on you and the reality of it sets in and they realize, well, being single isn't as great as I thought it was going to be either. And all these magical, amazing people I thought I was going to meet are kind of jerks and they're inconsistent and they're not showing up and people are presenting as one way and then you get to know them a little better and they have serious problems, which is what often happens in the dating world. So the reality starts to hit them, and by that time, if you haven't reached out, they start to really miss you more and more. And that's when they start to look at your stories more, start to contact your friends and family more, go past your work, things like that. They start to escalate because the relief stage is kind of going away. And now it's more like missing somebody that really cared about me and showed up for me. And even though they weren't perfect, I realized that I was part of the problem, and they get a little bit more balance and a little bit more clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very important to be able to give them that space during that time, but then also during that time, really thinking about yourself, thinking about your relationship skills, reflecting on your relationship, really learning how to heal. You know, in the last video that we filmed just now, we were talking about how it's also up to your ex to build your trust back up too. And so, you know, you're also in this vulnerable position, and we want you to get to a more confident state while your ex is in this relief stage and thriving and this and that. You know, we want you to be focused on what's important here and how to get you to be a better partner. Your ex could go through that relief stage, have those feelings of longing and want to repair. They also could not. Right? They also could transform into a different person as time changes people, and they have different experiences, and their independence, you know, leads them to different routes. So we want you to be prepared and confident for whatever outcome happens, and remind yourself that things happen in stages. Yes, for them, but also for you. We all know what it's like the first week after a breakup. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you were in such a fog that you completely forgot.
I don't remember what happened.
It was like a blackout.
You dissociated completely.
Just remember bed rotting the entire week and then waking up. So we know it can be really tough, but you go through stages as well through the breakup, albeit they're very different than your ex. But this comparison to your ex's timeline and your timeline can be really hurtful to your progress.
Yeah.
So in brev, focus on your growth.
It's kind of like the better that you start to get, the worse they start to miss you, right? It's kind of like you're on opposite ends, but the more that you really do the work and you're processing and you're in therapy, you're putting words to it, you're doing the creative healing course or the workbooks and watching the videos and everything that we teach, the better you're going to be, as opposed to if you're just watching no contact videos and not really learning all the skills and the things that we're trying to get you to learn.
Right.
That helps you process and move forward.
Right. So remember, their relief stage ends at some point, and your grief stage also ends and transforms at some point too.
Absolutely. All right. Hopefully this one has been helpful for you. If you'd like to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Zoom calls. Coach Victoria is also available for Zoom coaching.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. That's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.